Once upon a time, there was a family of beavers. Not your normal beavers. These beavers were big. They were intelligent. These were Timberborn beavers, strong as grizzly bears and smart as humans. Actually, smarter than humans, because these beavers didn't get themselves blown up like the humans did. Did I mention that all this is happening post-apocalypse? Because that's kind of important. See, most of the world is dried out and dead, but there is still water in some places, and those places tend to be where beavers live. These beavers. They're from the Folktails clan, so they like building and farming and the peaceful life. But the peaceful life takes hard work, especially in the post-apocalypse. This is Vinjin. He's the patriarch of the family. So he says, "Family, we need food, water, and logs to survive." And the family is like, "We're on it, Pop." So the son named Raidua picks a spot for the beavers to gather berries. And the son named Aradia picks a spot for the beavers to cut down trees. And the son named Talus picks a spot for a water pump, but that needs to be built with logs. And just like that, all the beavers have jobs, except for the babies. And Papa Vinjin is pleased. Before long, the water pump is finished, and Talus takes the first shift cranking the gears, which purifies the water for drinking. And boom, the colony has a second building. Papa Vinjin was happy with how the day went. The beavers don't work through the night, but there's not a whole lot for them to do otherwise. So they hang out for a bit, telling stories and dreaming about what the future will bring. And then they sleep on the ground because they don't have a house yet. It's morning, and everyone gets back to work. And the beavers start wondering if they shouldn't use their logs to build a house, like they built the water pump. But Vinjin knows what's coming, and he says no. He tells them to build another water pump, and to cut down even more trees. He tells them to build storage for the water, and storage for their berries. He tells them that before they build a house, they need to build a farmhouse. By the end of the day, there are more buildings plotted than the beavers know what to do with. But they trust Vinjin, and Vinjin tells them they need to prepare. He also tells them they're going to plant carrots once the farmhouse is done. And so, it's another night sleeping on the floor for the Folktails. But soon it's morning, and the beavers are back at it again. It's still not much to look at, but the colony is coming along. The farmhouse is a surprisingly complicated building, but eventually it's finished. And Venjo, the oldest grandson of Vinjin, begins planting the carrots. With long-term food and water solutions figured out, Vinjin finally sets his mind to what kind of house he wants to build for his family. The plan is set, but that house is not going to get built tonight. The beaver family is excited about their new home, though they wonder how they're all going to be able to fit inside it. Vinjin's mind has already moved on, planning an inventor's hut where the beavers can research science, and making the carrot farm bigger. But the beavers keep working on the house, and just to Vinjin's specifications, it's built. It's a cute little house, and a good starting point for their family. But sure enough, it's too small, so they start planning a whole clump of houses so they can all live together. These beavers are hard workers, but for the colony to grow, they need to level up their engineering and architecture, and the inventor's hut will let them unlock those things. And as the day comes to a close, and only a few of the beavers get to sleep inside, Vinjin makes one more plan to build a recreational campfire right in the heart of the village. The beavers have a lot to be proud of, and a lot to be excited about. These beavers have been chopping down a lot of trees, and to make sure they don't run out of their lumber source, they need to build a forester's cabin. The problem is this building needs to be unlocked with science points, and it's built with planks, an advanced resource. To make planks, they need a lumber mill, and to run a lumber mill, they need power, and to get power, they need a water wheel. It's a big project for the beavers, but it'll be worth it. Oh, and the houses are finished, so for the first time, the whole family gets to sleep indoors and on beds. Beaver happiness is at an all-time high, but Vinjin knows what's still coming. He tells his family to build a dam that will block the water flow on their river. He even tells them to hold off on the water wheel. Not everyone agrees with this move, but they respect Vinjin and do what he says. And by the end of the day, the first piece of the dam is finished. Vinjin's design contains the water, but leaves a gap so there's no flooding. The colony is making a lot of progress, and there's a lot to keep up with. But the campfire is ready, and the beavers absolutely love it. Every day brings exciting new challenges, and priority number one is Vinjin's dam. Vinjin seems to think hard times are ahead. Things seem pretty good to the beavers now, except that they're running out of trees to cut down. But Vinjin is in charge, and the Timberborns aren't much for democracy, so the dam gets built first. But also, the first batch of carrots are beginning to sprout up, and that will make these beavers very happy. With food to eat, good social time, and a nearly finished dam, things are sure looking good for these beavers. So begins the harvest of the carrots, which is celebrated alongside the completion of the dam, which means the beavers can get back to the water wheel and expanding their science center and adding more houses so the family can continue to grow. Unfortunately, the beavers are almost out of trees, but the lumber mill is finished, which means they're one step closer to replanting the forest. And by nightfall, Vinjin is prepared to commit to that plan. And it looks like adding houses worked. That was fast. Beaver ingenuity is on the rise, but beaver resources are getting scarce. So they expand to chop down every tree they can find. With a few more planks, they can build the forester's cabin, but even then, they have to wait for the planted trees to grow. But just like the carrot farm, the tree farm is the only way this colony will thrive and grow. As the day comes to a close, the cabin is finished, ready to begin planting at first light. Vinjin plots out where he wants the tree farm to be, and the next day the beavers get to work. Yes, these pine seedlings are somehow already taller than a beaver, but they have a long way to grow. The trees, like the baby beavers, will just have to wait. Vinjin's plan for a multi-level, terraced housing center is coming along, and these beavers are always building something. Unfortunately, construction is being bottlenecked by the lack of logs, but that doesn't stop them from planning their next projects, and the family has already accomplished a lot in such a short amount of time. The beavers awake to some startling news. Vinjin says a drought is coming. The beavers have 3 days to make sure they're ready. Vinjin has worked hard to prepare his family for this inevitable situation. He has seen his share of droughts, but thanks to the dam, their farms and fields should stay green and growing, even if the surrounding area dries out. In the post-apocalypse, every day matters and could decide whether you survive or die, but even more so when a drought is coming. These beavers couldn't sit around and wait. Now is the time for action. Every beaver was doing their part to prepare, but none of them were prepared for what tomorrow would bring. Vinjin had died. The fearless leader of the family, who had brought his colony so far, passed peacefully in his sleep just 1 day before the drought began. It was a somber day for the beavers, but they couldn't even stop to mourn properly because the drought was coming so soon. And ultimately they all knew that's what Vinjin would have wanted. Everyone got one more good night's rest before the drought began. In the morning, just as Vinjin had predicted, the river dried up, and the land with it. Except for the land where the Timberborn beavers had built, where Vinjin's dam was working exactly as intended. The water had been held back, the land was still green and growing, and the beavers were able to continue their work mostly undisturbed. The pumps were turned off to conserve the river water, and as long as it didn't all evaporate before the end of the drought, the colony was going to be alright. The beavers planted a small field of sunflowers, Vinjin's favorite, to honor the leader who had prepared them so well. For now, it was the only memorial they could make. If only Vinjin could have been there to see that the preparations he made paid off. Day 2 of the drought, and there was no denying that the water level was decreasing, but the dam was doing its job, and the beavers only had to survive a couple more days of drought. The tree farm was expanded to include oak trees, a potato field was planted next to the carrots, and the beavers even had time to break down a natural barrier along the river. This meant that when the drought ended, the river would also flow into this dried out canyon, potentially providing water to new beaver families downstream. All in all, another successful day for the beaver colony, despite the ongoing drought. On the last day of this dry season, the beavers felt an immense sense of optimism and appreciation for all that Vinjin had helped them do. The water level had dropped more, but there was still plenty to see them through. The young beavers played while the grown-ups continued their work. In a few short hours, the dried-up river would flow again, and the danger of the drought would be behind them. To think back to where this family was just days ago, seeing all they had accomplished in this short time, the Timberborn sat around their campfire, retelling the story of Vinjin's dam that saved their home. And the next morning, just as Vinjin had predicted, the water returned, bringing the dried ground back to life. The family was safe, the village had survived, and these Timberborn beavers had a bright future ahead of them. Hey everyone, Lieutenant Dan here. Thanks for watching this fun little story I put together. I hope you enjoyed it, and I would love to hear from you down in the comments. And if you would like me to continue this story of our Timberborn beavers, well, let me know. Thanks again, you guys have a fantastic day.